Welcome to the Climbing Lifer podcast. This is Don McGrath, your host. And every episode I share with you, I bring to you people with different perspectives. And today I am just so super excited. I just can't tell you how excited I am. So a little story. So many years ago, it was back in the early 90s, I happened to have been climbing in Tuolumne Meadows, and I had done a climb called Cibola. I think it was on the Mendelcott Dome. And I just finished that, and my partner and I were walking back to the road, and we happened to walk under the Backer Yerian, which is a famous test piece. Back then, it was rated 10D RX, and now I think they call it 11C RX, probably much more realistic. And so I was watching Hank Kaler climbing, and he was up there cursing and everything, and saying, "Backer, what are you thinking?" Right? And someone comes along the cliff. Come to find out, it was Dave Yerian, one of the gentlemen who put up that climb. And we connected, we told some stories, we got to know each other. And I was so excited when recently I saw it on Facebook. It came up to reach out to Dave as a friend. So I did, and that's why I'm welcoming to the Climbing Lifer podcast, Dave Yerian, Yosemite, Tuolumne legend, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me today. It's an honor to be a part of this podcast and represent an era of history that I was involved with.
So we met underneath the Backer Yerian. Tell us about that day. Tell us about the day when you and John did that climb. I'm sure it was epic.
Well, no, the day that we did it, or when?
Yeah, the day we did it. You did it.
Yeah. So basically, it was like I'd get up early in the mornings, at the cafeteria park in the parking lot there in the Meadows, and first to be there always with the sunlight. And John came down, and he wasn't stopping like he usually did. Like park his bus, usually would have coffee in the morning and hang out. He just goes, "Get in the car." And I go, "Is it worth it?" And he goes, "Get in." So we started driving down the road, and I'm going, Backer's not saying nothing, and this is unusual. And I kept quiet, and he kept quiet. And then we pulled into Backer Yerian parking lot, Medlicott, where back then it was only to host about 2 or 3 cars. Now it's spread out. You can probably park 7 cars there. But back at the time, it was more like quieter and not visited. And so anyway, I go, "Well, why are we pulled over here? Something wrong with the car?" He goes, "Nope." And I go, "Oh shit." I'm thinking, we're going up to the shadowed wall, which everybody's been fearing forever. And he pulls out this measly rack of a bolt kit and, couple of hexes. I think we had friends then too, barely. And I wasn't even wearing a harness then. And I did the whole route in the Swami belt. So I just grabbed my bag and we went up the trail. And John was very quiet. And I think basically once we got up near the base, every footstep that John was taking, it was like he was mutating fear, and I could feel it. And I'm going, "Oh shit." So we got to the base, and he goes, "Well, we're going to scramble up this ledge here, and we'll get up to this big ledge, and we're going to look at." I go, "No." And he goes, "Yeah, the black streak up there." And I go, "Oh shit." So we third classed up the approach pitch, like 5-7, and we hung out, and I was looking around, and he had been up there previous with Mike Leklinski, and I guess Leklinski was really supposed to do the route, but whatever the circumstance, I ended up there later, and then I found that out later after we did the route. It was supposed to be Leklinski and Backer. But so anyway, I'm up there, and John shows me his high point, some gear dangling. I go, and then it was just, the vibe was on. It was like an experience of like some dream you never thought you were going to be a part of. And then and then John started etching his way up the face, and we established the first pitch, and with no circumstances. But this is a time when we were applying our new technique, using sky hooks to hang off knobs to let go. So now we were changing the rules of climbing for a style to preserve the ground up climbing experience instead of coming down from the top. And back then nobody had rotary hammers anyway. But so we were trying this new technique, and so John hung off a few more hooks and established the first pitch. I came up, I had no problems following it. And then we wrapped out that day. And then after we finished it, the first pitch, and then I go, "Well, I didn't know who he's going to do the route with." And he goes, hey, you want to finish this route with me? And I go, game's on, buddy. And then he goes, okay, from this point on, you stay by my side. You don't say anything. I do all the talking if people ask questions. And that's kind of, and then we went back repetitive times. It took us 3 more times before we sent the route, you know. And it was like that. It was just like magical. It was like everything that I wanted in my life to come true in climbing. Now the 2 boys got their wishes from some, you know, magician with a crystal, you know, the okay boys tempting us, you know, to go up.
And it was great. For those who, you know, I happened to see someone in the gym the other day, a younger guy, but someone I respect. And I told him that I was going to he listened to the podcast, really liked it. And I told him I was going to have you on the podcast. And I said, you've heard of the Backer Yerian? And he said, no. And so one of the things I want to do on this podcast is make people aware of some of the history.
Yeah.
And that route is still to this day a test piece of bold climbing and put up back in the 70s. And it's an important part of climbing history.
Yeah, but another thing for the people that don't know who John Backer is, John was the first person to do El Capitan and Half Dome in a day with Canadian climber Peter Croft. So let that be known. And then I was just kind of later to be remembered because of Backer Yerian along with John.
And you went on to do a lot more with John, right? You climbed a lot up in the meadows and in Yosemite. Mm-hmm. Tell us about what that was like.
Climbing in the meadows in Yosemite with John. It was pretty cool because like we were kind of playing around with like what hadn't been done, you know, and the possibilities of doing things that, you know, nobody was even looking at. So before we did Backer Yerian, we went out to, well, first of all, I got John on the rescue team. You know, the rescue team was a place where he gave us a home. And I was up there a few years before that and then climbing with Vern Clevenger and took me under his wing. And then later, it took me 2 years to bribe Backer to finally come up. And then, so once we got up there, we started this thing about, first 2 years was like bouldering, you know, so we're on the east side. And this is when we started establishing bouldering areas like Backer Rocks across from June Lake. And then there's a bunch of us, you know, Fault Line, Trifle Tower, you know, areas like that were being developed. But because of John and his friends, we were doing something new for 2 years, developing like, you know, a path like John Gill and, you know, the peacefulness and, you know, doing the unknown and that special time with your friends. And then 2 years later, after all that, we would start climbing with ropes. And this is when we practiced out on the South Wisdom. And there was no routes at the time. And the only route actually was Rivendell Crack 5.8. So we put up this route called Cheatstone. And that's when John pulled the hooks out. And that's when we started realizing, hey, you know, we can change climbing here. Now we can let go on steeper climbing, drill the bolts in and go ground up and do as pure as we can. But, you know, there's always the compromise. But, you know, we got some flack. But, you know, basically it preserved stuff for a long time. And then it was way before the wrap bolting would take over the traditional aspects, kind of like, you know, the ground up people like John and I. And so it was really fun. And then, so our daily routine would be, you know, after Cheatstone was like to contemplate all that. But then, you know, our normal life was like, you know, workout. We had the rescue side, the backer ladder, the pull-up bars, the pinch boards. And, you know, we were training like fiends. I could do one arms. And, you know, all I did was I was loyal. I stood by John's side. But I just knew that there was something there for us. And we weren't going to leave because we both felt it. And he asked me not to leave the side.
So whenever you're pushing things and you're changing things, right, we're constantly new gear coming around, new styles coming around. So you're coming up with a new style, you and John. And so you said you caught a little flack from that. What was that like?
Well, we kind of got it from like Higgins, you know, and, you know, just, you know, the daily crew, like, oh, you guys are changing something. And John goes, don't listen to those guys. We're doing something that's right, Dave. You know, let's just, if we can't be around people that support us, it's just you and I, man. Let's just stay close and hold our dreams. And, you know, we'll express how we feel through our efforts of climbing. And, you know, that shows the kind of individuals we are. Even if we took flack, we knew that we didn't have a lot of friends, but we had each other, and there was pressure. You know, people were talking about us. They were wondering why our car was here or there. But, you know, there's always kind of that pressure of like, oh, that's the unknown. You can't do that. You have to do it this way. So that the old avant-garde, you know, to like trying to change things as young kids. And, you know, there's always Higgins, you know, and camps. Well, you guys, you know, this is the way we did it. But we go, well, we want to do it our way. So
and you just got to expect that, right? When you're doing something different, people are going to get, because it's different, right? And they were comfortable, I'm sure, with what they were doing. One thing that when I got to know you even better, I learned was you actually had a pretty serious accident when you were younger. You had already been climbing.
Yeah.
John was one of the people who befriended you and brought you back into climbing. Can you share a little more about that experience?
Yeah. So basically, I was just got out of high school. I'd been up in the valley for about a half a year, and then I was going back and forth to my mom's house, and I was below Groveland, got hit. And so this drunk driver hits me. I break my back in 2 places, hurt my face. And then I go back to Camp 4 with a back brace on for 6 months. And then, you know, people are helping me put my back brace on. I was too weak, and I needed help, and all my teeth were knocked out for 2 years. I couldn't get them replaced. And I was like Camp 4 orphan, but, you know, everybody played a part in helping me. So 2 years later, you know, doctor goes, your back's okay. But during this time, you know, Backer was one of the only people that would like try to rehabilitate me by going, hey, why don't you get in the car, and then we'll walk up to the cliff as far as you can, and then you can just sit here, and then when I get done climbing, I'll help you get back down, and you're going to get stronger. And then he just saw something in me, and he kind of rebuilt me, like Reanimator, you know, I'm going to fix Dave. And he did. And he brought my spirit and the love back to climbing, because everything that I wanted and wanted to aspire to was taken away by the wreck. And John was one of the only people that goes, no, man, I'm going to give you a second chance. I'm going to give you that wish. And he was like, that's why I was so loyal to him. And then, you know, I wanted him to always reach that highest goal. So whatever he did, I supported it so he could get that gold in that hat, and whatever the circumstance or risk, you know.
And that elevated you, right? I'm sure you look back and like you were the climber that you came to be in large part because of some of the things that you experienced with John and some of the others people at that time.
Oh yeah. I mean, like he got me back into highball bouldering, training, just, you know, a new person. You know, I can't even express it. I still owe the guy so much, you know.
Yeah, he sounds like an amazing guy, and you got to be extremely good friends. And I know his loss really was difficult. We unfortunately in our sport and our passion, we lose people that, like, you know, all the books say climbing is dangerous and things can happen. And so my heart goes out to you and others.
Thank you.
Lose.
Yeah. You know, that's what I like. I like try to tell the next generation, like, you know, like it's all a community, you know, it's always like, it's forever friendship, you know, and it's like, we never leave each other. We're friends for life. And that's the beauty of climbing, you know.
You get really close to somebody when you're holding their life in your hands and vice versa. And I was sharing with you, Dave, that myself and my old climbing buddy, that I used to go to Yosemite every year back in the 90s. And so we are both in training to go do the rostrum in May. And I'm really looking forward to that, because we have this just a brotherhood. This is absolutely fantastic.
Jealous.
Jealous. Well, hopefully I'll see you at some point. We're really looking forward to climbing together. But first, I need to make a break for our sponsors. Sharp End Publishing is a publishing company by climbers for climbers. They've got an incredible array of very high quality guidebooks, as well as other instructional books, mostly centered around adventure, the outdoors, and rock climbing. And you can find them on sharpendbooks.com. In fact, they are, and your book is in the mail, Dave. I just sent you a copy of Vertical Mind. This is mine and Jeff Ellison's book. It's about the science of cognitive learning applied to fear and climbing. And so if you find that climbing your mental aspects might be holding you back, Jeff and I, we've got great feedback from Vertical Mind. We've heard it's helped many, many people. So you can find it on Amazon.com or on sharpendbooks.com. So Dave, I'd love to hear another story about your time. You came across, you were great friends with John and climbed with John a lot. And I think there are many others that you climb with. I'd love to hear another story about an experience that stands in your mind that represents that era.
I would say one, it was like, there's a couple. I'd say there's two stories. One was I was in Tuolumne, and it was some years later after the Back of Yerian, maybe 7 years later. And my friend Roy McClanahan and I had planned in Tuolumne to do shambles to the way left the Back of Yerian, a Clevenger route. And so I had been at a party and excessive drinking and so on. And so the next day I'd left some food in my car, and I went out to my car, and we're supposed to do shambles. And the bear had gotten into my car, ripped my window down, and I'm hung over. And then this guy drives by, and his bumper clips my car, rips the stripping off my BMW, the rear bumper. And I'm going, oh man, and I'm late, and Roy's looking for me. And he goes, and then he comes up, and he goes, you ready for shambles? And I go, sure, why not? And so it was a great time on shambles. That route doesn't really get done a lot. It's super aesthetic. It was ahead of its time, really poetic route, Vern Clevenger route. But one of my really big highlights was with David Schultz. We'd been training together a lot at the Cookie Cliff in Lower Canyon in Yosemite. And Cookie Cliffs, for those of you who don't know, it's one of our premier training crack areas, Lower Canyon, above Arch Rock and below Reed's Pinnacle. So we've been training there. And then, I didn't really know what Dave was thinking, but he just goes, well, let's see if we can do 5 5-11 pitches and 5 5-10 pitches in 3 hours and a half. And I go, or 4 hours, 3.5, 4 hours. I go, sure, I don't know why we're doing it, but we did it. And then the next day, he pulls up in the parking lot with this Volkswagen bus, and there's nobody around. It's just dead still. And it's that era, winter, January. We just only guys climbing pretty much us, and then maybe Warner Braun, but he was soloing. But Schultz goes, "Hey, Yerian, what are you doing?" I go, "I don't know. I guess waiting for you." And he goes, "What? You want to go do something?" I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Let's go in the car." And I go, "All right." We drive over to Awani, and he pulls out this measly rack, and he goes, "Let's go do Astroman." I go, all right. Because I'd been up it before with Warner Braun and got snowed off from the endurance pitch, and always kind of wished I'd done the route and never finished it. And that was one of the highlights. And just to be with Dave and just to watch his poetic climbing, climbing in the silence of the morning and not saying anything, his confidence, his peace with himself, and just our great friendship, one rope, one rack, committed. Round trip back to the car in 5 hours, Wani parking lot, but the experience of, finally, like, my whole life just opened up. Like, I was the Yosemite climber. I belonged again, and I reached my triumph up from my wreck. I was a Yosemite climber now. I was fully engaged, and there was no life and no other place I wanted to be. And that was one of my best friends, and that was one of my best times of my whole life. One of the greatest climbs of all times by Ron Kalk, John Backer, and John Long, which are all Yosemite historians and are my deep friends.
Absolute legends. And for anyone who's ever been up on Astroman, you know what Dave's talking about. For those of you who haven't been up on Astroman, I think the number is like, it's supposed to be 11C or something, but it is an enormous route. It really is challenging, right, Dave? And so, there's almost like a brotherhood of people who have been through the Harding slot and through the enduro pitch.
Yeah, and when we were doing the Harding slot, this funny part of the story is like, Schultz led the whole route. I just followed it, and so what had happened was when I got up to the belay. He was bummed because he fell in the lead the first time after 10 times he'd done it before. He'd never had fallen, and he fell this day. So I lowered him back down from the station, back down through the slot. And then he did it again just so he felt like his karma was right. And so he did the slot twice that day. But that's Dave for you. He's a perfectionist.
So another memory that I have from Mount Astroman is I did it with a mentor of mine, Fred Abul, and we got up and we actually slept on good ledge, right? So he did the changing corners pitch off of that ledge, and he's at the top of it. It's really early in the morning. Sun had just come up, and I climbed the thing, and I get like 20 feet below him, and the holds are like really water worn, and your face, right? And Fred looks down at me and he says, "Imagine Peter Croft soloing right here."
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness, to be there on those little tiny holds.
Well, let's let the everybody's listening picture this, like, someone when you get in the corner that leads to the face on Astroman, that's run out. And if you fall there, your rope will go over the edge. It could possibly cut, and you could take a seriously or fatal fall there. That's the most serious, one of the serious points is the face part up there, when switching corners. Yeah, it's no joke, even today.
It's no joke. And I'm looking forward to going back and doing the rostrum, and Astroman sends shivers down my spine to this day. So, one thing you shared with me that I thought was really, really fun is you were one of the early rappers.
Yeah.
You and John, right? You guys played around a little bit with rapping.
Yeah.
Not rappelling, but rapping. So you shared a rap with me earlier. I'd love it if you shared it with everybody.
Yeah. Okay, here's one. We were in the 70s, what could I say? We hung around and we started to pray. We knew that we had to go out on a lead. We had eccentrics. Now can't you see? And a Swami belt, and we ran it out. We had to rely on only of ourselves. We were a tight crew and we knew what to do. But this was so much fun. This is what we did, and we played in the sun, having fun. It went that way all day long.
That's awesome. What is there's Snoop Dogg, and there's that. What's your tag name?
Just Homie D.
Just Homie D.
Yeah, that's kind of stuck on when I rap. I've rapped a lot of parties with Al Swanson, John Backer. We rapped over at the Stumps across from Dead Man Summit on Harding's 70th birthday. We had this big old blowout party. It was like, Don Loria, Herbert, all kinds of people were there. And we had music. It was just crazy fun,
So you were really in an amazing place back at that period of time, but things have changed for you in climbing over the years. How has climbing changed for you over the years?
Well, it's kind of put me in a segregation where I'm like in a time capsule where I'm invisible now, where I'm not remembered or noticed, like kind of a lonely place in my life, to tell you the truth. And what happens is we all grow up, and your friendships it widens, like you can't get to your friends. And so for me, how climbing's changed is I feel kind of lonely that like people don't approach me when I go to Yosemite. Like I'll go down to El Cap Bridge, and it's all everybody, this new energy, new group of people. Nobody knows anybody, and it's okay. But that's why I'm glad to be on this podcast. That people should remember people, and young or old. And I feel like we don't talk. Like there's a gap where generations aren't talking. We haven't joined hands, to realize, this is a small group and we should know everybody. But we're kind of, it's like an Orson Welles movie. We're losing history. We're losing the people that provided that. So I'm kind of sad that I feel like we're forgetting people like me and Backer and Bridwell. Like I go in the gym and I talk to the kids at the counter, and they don't know John Gill or, all these people that brought climbing forth, and but that's one thing. But the other thing is like the previewing, the El Cap routes, leaving something behind for others. Are we rushing all of this now by, doing these El Cap routes and previewing and maybe these, but to see if these routes would go, but maybe these routes could have been done ground up, or maybe we're rushing, doing so many routes fast on El Cap. Maybe the people who are doing them should have left some of those behind for others. I personally think it's on high speed, and I think there's a lot of selfishness, and we're not sharing enough to let other generations show their abilities and their talent. And maybe they will, but I just think that El Cap is just being dissected and taken apart too soon. And I think that a lot of these routes could have been done ground up that are being previewed today.
And I think certainly climbing is changing. The explosion in climbing gyms, the climbing is definitely changing. I know when I first was learning how to climb, history meant a lot. It meant a lot to me. I remember sitting next to Peter Croft up in the little cafe up in the store in Tuolumne Meadows, and he was eating like a breakfast sandwich. And I was like, that's Peter Croft, So the history did mean a lot. And I think it's up to us to share the history. And one of the reasons I started this podcast to get some of that history back in the discussion. I ran into Jimmy Dunn, met him for the first time out at Turkey Rocks like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And the history means a lot to me. So I'm hoping one of my objectives is to get some of the history back into the discussion.
Yeah. I mean, like I was just talking to Jimmy, just having the same conversation. And like nobody really knows what Earl and Jimmy did. Earl Wiggins and Jim Dunn were famous climbers from Colorado. And these guys were loners, and they were seeking hardcore adventure between each other. And these guys just basically went into the Black Canyon of the Gunnison down in near Ouray in Montrose and Colorado. And they were all alone doing routes that probably have not been repeated or seen very little since then. But these guys climbed like two little kids and had it all to themselves. And these guys, like, Earl's not with us anymore, but Jimmy talks about, these adventures, and nobody even knows about it. Like it's just, all this history is just being forgotten, but these guys were like in Yosemite and no one was there,
But we're changing that. And I know you're working on a book, and share with us more about that.
Okay. So I started this dream about doing a book. So the book's called Tuolumne Climber, and it's a book that represents the eras from the 60s to kind of drops off in the early 90s when sport climbing and rap both had started. So I've been very fortunate with my climbing connections that I could ask these people for material that I haven't talked to in years, and they would relinquish it. They would give it to me, and those connections were earned. And so what makes this book so valuable is that these people gave me help, and now I have something that where I can protect them and they can protect me through history. And so I've got these stories from vast stories from the 60s to 70s and 80s, and it was all my connections and that I had with these people that now it's just going to be beautiful because it's going to be all expressed through all these experiences and generations. My book and my book partner Lynn Lightfist, I couldn't do this without her, and it's been 10 years now, and people can say what they want, but it has its own rising, and but it's just a way to protect a landscape, a place that gave us a home, a community, and the people we love are not to be forgotten. And the way we were was protected. We were like invisible, and we found a place where no one would bother us, and it was all that's protected in my book, The Tuolumne Climber. So it's kind of a heartfelt book, just all about people we love in that era and the style of climbing, and I'm going to pull it off.
Excellent. So where can people find out more if they're like, oh, I can't wait for this book to come out? Because I can't wait, because I'm going to put it right next to Camp 4, which is my all-time favorite climbing book so far.
Yeah, right now I'm looking for publishers. I'm looking for help. And if any of you hear my voice, you can contact me through daveyerian@gmail.com. I could use help on publishing possibly, or ideas. So we're at that point, but we need to get a blog. We haven't got a blog up. So it's kind of right now, but we're trying to bring it more up to everybody's awareness,
Got to get the word. Got to get the word out. You and I were talking the other night, and I said the worst time to tell people about your book is when it's out. You got to tell them about it beforehand. So
I know.
Dave Yerian at gmail.com.
Yes.
And so people can reach out to you, and you'll let them know how things are going with the book. Anyone who's out there who is watching this or listening to this, who knows a publisher who wants to put out probably one of the sleeping books. I mean, people don't know about this, but it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be about stories from an era that is filled with character.
Oh yeah, it's more of an emotional book. It's not like super intellect. It's just like happy, cool stories about the way these people work, and it's beautiful in its own way.
So speaking of books, I'm going to give another plug. This one is for me, because I'm putting this party on, and I'm certainly one of the sponsors. This is the first book I ever wrote. It's titled 50 Athletes Over 50. And I did just that. I interviewed 50 athletes over the age of 50, mixed martial artists, runners, cyclists, mountain unicyclists. And I interviewed them over about a year period. And I was in my mid 40s, and I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be an athlete over 50 who was just kicking butt and taking names. And I learned a lot from that process of interviewing them. And so in the book, I share some of the things that I learned about, and now I am an athlete over 50. And I got to say, I'm feeling pretty good. Dave and I were just saying, hey, we're still at it, right, Dave? We're still at it and kicking.
Oh yeah. I'm a lifer, man. I want to climb the rest of my life. This is poetic ballet, my friend, an art form.
So, but we do face challenges. We do face injuries. We do face, and I know you just recently are getting over this surgery on your toe, and so you're working your way back. And so, what's that been like?
Well, it's been really hard because it was about during the time I lost backer, and then I was pumping gas, and a gas pump handle popped out of the car, landed on my foot, broke it 2 places. I had 1 surgery, didn't really work that well. And I haven't been able to climb for 10 years cracks. So I basically just stepped out of climbing. Everybody thought like I disappeared. But there was no need I couldn't do anything. So then I decided to pull the trigger, and I just got a new surgery. And I decided, I do really want to climb. And this whole absence made me realize the beauty and the art of climbing has to be continually expressed, and I can't live without expression. So this is my second chance, my wish come true, and I hope I can choreograph the life that I portrayed, one day. Yeah.
Like the tagline that I first came up with for Climbing Lifer is, because climbing isn't just something that we do, right? It's not just something that we do. It's integral to who we are.
Yeah. We breathe it, we live it, we can't live without it. Yeah.
So you're coming back. I shared with you that I want to go do the rostrum, and you got some things that you want to go do this year, right?
Yeah, I'm hoping with Scott Cole to go back to Salathé Wall. I went to do it once with Hugh Burton, and it just didn't kind of work out for us, so we came down. Hugh had done the route before, but it's just how it was. So I saw Scott. I was just climbing with Scott in Mexico a couple weeks back, a month or so back, maybe a month and a half. And we had talked about Salathé Wall, and he wants to go to do that. So that's my motivation. Hopefully, toe's going to come around. I'll be able to do it, So that's my dream, and just to carry the life experiences through climbing and keep it going, But I'm really pleased I have a goal, at least, and something to obtain for.
And I got to say, you're super fit, and that's one of the keys, right? Is to just stay fit.
Yeah, I'm skinnier than when I did Astro, man. I'm like 159 right now. It's 165, and I went vegan. I changed my diet, just turned my whole life around. I don't drink. I quit drinking. Not that was a big deal, but I was able to turn my life around, and now I'm getting more fit and feeling better than I've ever felt. And now I just want to tap into that energy and climb again and use my attributes and continue this healthy lifestyle with the beauty of climbing, you know.
You've also turned your attention to a business, right?
Yes. I am starting a new business with a friend of mine, Don Mealing. And we had first met in Yosemite and climbed together at Cookie Cliff. You know, we were talking about that in the Lower Canyon earlier. We did Waverly Wafer one day. And then I hadn't seen Don for a long time. And we met at Facelift some couple years ago. And then we were talking about, well, what are we doing? And so I had this crack idea. And then Don, being a great businessman, he thought, hey, I got an idea. So we formed a partnership. So we have a company called Jam Walls. And what we're doing is bringing the culture of crack climbing back to indoor climbing, and to help people see that climbing is not just plastic. It is, there's earth and there's outdoors, and crack climbing is a part of all that. And so Jam Walls is, we're about to do business with El Dorado Walls, and they're going to be our exclusive distributor. And they're going to be building our cracks with us, and we are forming a business with them with our products. We have reps, Justin Rhodes, and he's in Asheville, North Carolina. He's with Black Dog Reps, and he reps for companies. But he's also going to be repping for El Dorado and us, our Jam Walls. And so it's really neat to, I never thought that I'd be a crack dealer, you know, selling cracks. You know?
Love it.
And,
but, you know, it's such an important technique. It's such an important technique. Even if you don't want to climb cracks, I can't tell you the number of times I've been on difficult sport climbs.
Yeah.
And what saved my bacon was a hand jam, something, and being able to get some recovery going.
Well, what's cool is like the culture, but, you know, bringing crack climbing culture back, you know, and a lot of our cracks we're building, we have transition pieces, so we can go out roofs with our cracks in the gyms. And now you have a flaring fist crack from a finger lock, and it's like you could get shut down, you know. And the cracks they'll widen or get narrower, and we have various depths. And so it's going to be really interesting to throw that all out in the world. But it seems like it's doing really well. We've got Stephen Jeffrey now on our team, longtime hardcore boulderer, also a very accomplished rope climber. He's doing a book for Joe's Valley in near Orangevale, you know, all the famous bouldering there. And Stephen's just really great to have in the team, and he supports us. He's great at designing business and innovation. And so this is just a great time to bring climbing and crack climbing and the culture back. And we're really excited to have something to offer the training world, the indoor climbing world.
So it's certainly not, the culture has changed. Climbing has changed a lot over the last 30 some odd years, but it really is an exciting time to be a climber, right? With us climbing Olympics, the number of, a gym just opened 5 minutes from my house, and it's incredible. Yeah. So, you know, the wheels of progress go, and I think it's up to us, the climbing community, to make sure we care for it and keep the elements of climbing that mean the most to us, the community, the sport, the health, what it does for us, right?
Yeah, right. Well, you know, what, you know, there's so much to talk about. I mean, the one of the things why I like to bring crack climbing back too is, like, you know, let's look at the elegance, you know, of, like, you know, the crack climbing in the 70s, you know, like Rostrum, Crucifix, you know, Astroman, you know, Half Dome being freed, The Nose in a Day by John Long, Jim Bridwell, and Billy Westbay. Billy Westbay was a climber from Colorado that would come out all the time, very accomplished, for those of you who don't know. John Long was a hardcore Yosemite climber from SoCal that would come up every year. And those were Bridwell's boys. And when Bridwell did the Nose in a Day, you know, and it was just crazy. And, like, you know, then my generation, like, you know, Ron Kalk doing 2L cap routes at 2 different times in a week, and people still don't even know that and how he did it. I mean, there's so much, but the elegance of that era and like the way we lived, the community we had was so small, and the people had come over from all over the world. We knew them: Reinhard, Carl, Kurt Albert, Wolfgang Gula, Jerry Moffat, Ben Moon, all these people. There was more, Patrick Ellinger. There's just so many people, and but it was so different then. And I am proud to say now that there's no other era that I wanted to climb it. It was a simple innocence. It was everybody together as a team, and we took everybody as a brother and sisterhood, and it was just so easy to manage. But the elegance, the beauty. So that choreographed really the beauty of climbing, and I hope that transmits to other people's hearts that, like, the poetic beauty in a beautiful place way off the ground with your best friend. It's still there, but we had it when no one was there. It's just it's a feeling,
And
a lifestyle.
Climbing has gotten so popular that it can be very, very crowded. There's places like Shelf Road, which is one of my near home crags, on the weekends is really, really crowded. So I think what's up to us as a climbing community is, it's great that things are getting popular, but what we need to do is make sure that we leave the places clean, make sure that, we're keeping them quiet. We're maintaining the things. I mean, I like to get out to go climbing for some peace and quiet, not to hear a boombox blaring next to me. So I think as stewards, it's one of our responsibilities as stewards of that.
Well, I think this is a good pivot point, interjunction you there. This is a really valuable, like what we're saying right now. It just resonated with me. This is something I need to say. So when I was a kid, y'all, I was 16. I'd walk up Westline Road to get to Buttermilk Road, and there might be one car. Okay, I had that before anybody. I went by myself with my own duffel bag, with my junk, just a pilgrimage of a young kid, following after, Doug Robinson and Smoke Blanchard and all these old timers. And, today you go to Buttermilk's, 100 cars. You go to Happy Boulders, which we call the Chalk Bluffs, 100 cars. And then like in the late 70s, early 80s, the gorge wasn't even happening in Owens River. Now it's exploded so much. I'm asking you all, what do we do? You have to be the stewards for the preservation of the future. I did what I could. It's up to all of you, and I hope that you protect these areas with management and understanding how we use our lands.
And recently, the Pikes Peak Climbers Coalition did a fantastic job over the last few years, raised a bunch of money, put some new pit toilets at Shelf Road, built new parking lots because people were parking along the road, and it was kind of crazy. So the one thing we can do is to contribute and get involved in organizations like that. Get involved. There's at almost every major crag, there is a steward organization. So either if you don't have time, give them money. If you don't have money, give them time.
Yeah. There's another, there's just, that's the only thing that really, I mean, I don't mind if you forget me. Okay, that's fine. But don't forget the land that supports us and sustains us, and for the future generations to have what we had. We have to protect that to other generations so they can enjoy what we all had,
So you've been in this game a long time. You are a climbing lifer. So what does climbing mean to you now?
Climbing means that, like, it just means I have to carry on, and if I have no contact with anybody, but I have somebody to climb with, I just go out and do what I feel is best for the environment and myself. And I carry on the style of climbing that may be old fashioned, or, but I have to persevere through the changes, like water going around rock. I have to do my own thing, but I notice the blemishes, the impurities. I can't always say something. This is one of the first times I talked about it. So, it's just, climbing today, it's so big that, it's just so hard to get together with people. So you tend to just climb with your old friends, and you're kind of segregated, is what I see, because of the population masses in the climbing world. And so, you kind of just do your own thing, and who you run along the way is cool. You can say something, but it's just more people now, and people forget about people. So I don't know. You're just kind of doing your own thing, you know.
There's never been more opportunity to connect with other climbers through things like Mountain Project at the gyms. So there are great ways to connect with people, and you just got to connect with the right people.
But I kind of cringe though, because I've had it a certain way, and I don't want to change, because I'm my own artist. So I just kind of go where I can go to quiet areas, and I see something that's beautiful, I climb it. I don't even tell anybody. Like, I've got areas out in the deserts, between Capitol Reef, and in between Salt Lake City. And there's so much, and I can go out there and nobody even knows what I'm doing. And I'm kind of like a John Gill type. I do stuff like, and do new things and don't tell anybody.
So climbing can teach us a lot. And I've taken a lot of life lessons, and I used to use some of those life lessons when I was a manager in corporate America. And another plug for me, Don McGrath. So the last book I wrote is titled The Climb, and it's a leadership fable about navigating challenging change. And it's about a team in a company that's undergoing lots of challenges. And through some climbing adventures, they have an opportunity to go on some climbing adventures together, and they get to see how they're showing up and how they're interacting, maybe not in the best ways, and they learn some valuable lessons for that. So you can find this on Amazon.com. If you work on a team, if you work with others, if you like climbing, and if you like to think about climbing in the context of life lessons, then I think you'll really enjoy The Climb. So life lessons from climbing, Dave, what life lessons have you taken that you've used in other aspects of your life?
I've learned through life lessons that anything could be taken away from us any day in our lives, and we can't count on one thing. So I just enjoy what I've done, and I apply the beauties of what nature's taught me about being a human being, what it's like to be a human, how I interact with my world, how kind am I being to myself and my world, how to love my humanity, and how to be a better person and have a chance every day to improve, even though if I made a mistake before. So it just gave me a good value code to be a good person, and through the life lessons of climbing.
And there's formed such great friendships. And I still go back to when we met each other the first time under the Dave Yerian, and then how many years left? 30 years later, or 25
Plus.
years left, right?
It's right, 35 at least.
And what was that like when we connected?
Well, tell you the truth, it's one of my secrets. So, I mean, it doesn't matter anymore. I don't even think most people would even care, but I wondered if I could traverse the whole length of Medlicott. So I was checking out segments of it. Now, some people probably thought about it, but that was the day I was walking up there. I was like scoping the sections of like, could I traverse this whole thing? I don't even think it's been done yet. And it's like, cool, goal, but I don't even know if I'll ever do it. But I was just up there probing the possible of the longest untraversed that would be a mile-long cliff.
Wow.
That was why I was up there.
Yeah, you just came walking along. I had no idea who the heck you were. And we were watching Hank, and I remember him like throwing a fit up there. He was like, Backer, what were you thinking? Right?
Yeah, I mean, it is a sanctuary up there, and it's removed from the rest of Tuolumne. And in any time that I've walked by, I've managed to capture a few other parties, and friends of friends waiting at the base while their friends were climbing BY, kind of like you that day. And it's just fun to like not kind of giggle and laugh and not give my name away, and just pretend like I'm just a hiker or something and talk to the people and just see what they say. And it's kind of funny to giggle and pretend like I got a secret and you don't know, like a little kid. It's just fun to play with the people.
Yeah, I don't even remember how it came up, your name came up, but we were just kind of hanging like climbers at the bottom and watching watching Hank have a wobbler or two up there. And I don't know how it came up, but I'm glad we connected. I'm glad that we met. I'm glad you're on this podcast today, sharing your story and the history.
Yeah, no, it's I don't know really whatever I have to say, you can all follow it, but it's just my heart path, and I just hope that what I said today, you feel my heart. And, just the biggest thing is like, love your friends. This is for life, just protect the places we love, and, just have a beautiful life, is my suggestion. I hope you got a little of that, like, out of my talking today.
And we make great friends in climbing, and oops, I think I lost Dave. I think the internet. All right, are we back?
Yeah, can you see me?
I think it's starting. I'm starting to get you back. I can hear you.
Yeah, I can't see you. I see you, but
Let's see. I think we're probably going through some. There we go.
Hold on. Can you see me?
Yep, I can see you now. Yep, there we go. We're back. Nothing thwarts us.
Okay. We're good.
Yeah, I think probably just some internet bandwidth kinds of things. But I feel so blessed that we have the technology that we have today, and that Dave can be on this podcast in California. I'm sitting here in Colorado, and we can make this work.
It's been a pleasure.
So anything more you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, to all the new climbers, I mean, like, let's, we take big chances in life, and eventually they catch up to us. We just lost so many people before us. And, when we take bigger risk, we have bigger consequences. So, like, when everybody runs out some speed ascents, if anything happens, you have a family of people that love you. And these are things to consider. It's not just about you. We got to think about the people that love us and support us. And that's why I kind of drew the line at one point, like, okay, I can risk my life so long, but there's got to be a point where we step back, because we have to be responsible to the people we love, and always consider that. They come first.
And one thing that we all can do is make sure that we're trained properly, right? Make sure that we're seeking instruction either from people who have done what we want to do and people that we aspire to do what they've done, or there's organizations that offer courses. There's the AMGA, there's climbing gyms, there's places. Get trained and learn how to do this properly, because like this says in all the books and all the products, climbing can be dangerous.
Yeah, and for us to make it look easy when we put an anchor together, we're 5 decades of climbers. I mean, we've been at this as a lifer. So anybody wants to get into climbing, you got to give your life to be self-sufficient at climbing. It's not easy being a climber. Okay.
But we wouldn't have life any other way, would we, Dave?
No, this is the only life I want. I have no regrets. I'm proud of where I came from and the people that supported me. Climber life for life. I love it. That's me.
Climbing Lifer. So thank you so much, Dave, for being on the Climbing Lifer podcast. I loved your stories. I'm sure people who are listening to this are going to love hearing more of that history. And your email again, so in case people want to find out more about your book or reach out to you.
I am Dave Yerian at gmail.com.
And book coming out hopefully sometime in the near future. Anybody who's out there and knows a publisher, reach out to Dave. It's going to be fantastic. I'm sure it's going to go right next to Camp 4, which is one of my favorite climbing books of all time. And so thank you so much, Dave, for being on the Climbing Lifer podcast.
Namaste, and climb alert.